in animal law. Prisca, if you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Knowledge, for that introduction. And I would also like to thank Mr. Mndoga for giving us the opening statement, and Mr. Tambara for also giving us such an insightful presentation. Ideally, I was supposed to have presented first to sort of like pave the way so that what Mr. Tambara would have said would have made a lot more sense. But I'm happy to see that a lot of conversation was coming up as he was making his presentation. So I'll skip some of the issues that he might have already touched on, and I'll just focus on the participation of the youth, participation of young people in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, as well as in the Convention on Biological Diversity. So I'll just share my screen, and I'll just give a little bit of context of how it is that young people came about to be involved, in the convention. Okay, that seems not to be working. Okay, so I guess I'll just explain, and hopefully the screen will start working again. So the Zimbabwe Youth Biodiversity Network is a chapter of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which was established in 2010 at COP10. And this came about after a group of young people who attended the COP meeting noticed that young people were not really being involved in these negotiations under the convention, and yet issues that were being discussed are issues that also affect young people, but they were not being given the platform to also contribute to the conversation. So this, a group of young people came up and set up this global biodiversity network, and a little text was actually included in the documents of the meeting, which actually recognized the youth as an important partner and stakeholder in the convention. And the ZYBN is based in more than 100 countries, and there's a membership of more than 600,000 young people who are involved in biodiversity and biodiversity related issues. And membership, it's open. Either you can be a member as an individual, or you can be a member as an organization. And some of the strategic actions that it takes in terms of involving young people. It focuses on policy and advocacy, and we see this through youth consultations, just as the one that we have organized as ZYBN, whereby if there is, for example, like the issue of the post-2020 global biodiversity framework and all its processes that Edwin mentioned, that happen under the CBD, and just to get young people involved in each and every one of those processes, and for them to also provide their views, their concerns, so that participation is inclusive and also captures the concerns of young people. So through this, you also create youth positions that can also be presented when the COP meetings are actually in session through what are called interventions. And so far, the ZYBN has made more than 50 interventions, and it's a global network, which means it's inclusive of everybody, whether you come from America, Africa, from wherever you are. They strive to make sure that each and every youth is represented, including indigenous youth, and also youth from local communities as well. And just in terms of advocacy as well, it also focuses on intergenerational dialogues with key stakeholders, such as the government, and we are happy, that we have Mr. Mundoga representing the Biodiversity National Office, as well as the Minister of Environment is also here, part of these discussions as well, because we do not just want to have these discussions as young people amongst ourselves, and then it ends there. Part of this is to take these outcomes, these concerns, and to present them to our policymakers, to our decision makers, to say this is what young people are saying. These are the concerns that they want you to consider. I think it's now working. So yeah, I think I already mentioned this. And yeah, so ZYBN was established in 2017 following the first Africa Biodiversity Capacity Building Workshop, which was organized by the ZYBN, and I also happened to attend this workshop. And after that, that's when we started on discussions to actually establish a network in Zimbabwe whereby we can also have these discussions as young people. And you can see, like, from where we started up until where we are right now, where we're actually able to participate in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, not just as ZYBN chapter alone, but together with other young people and youth organization as well. So some of the participants were actually selected to be part of these discussions, all representing different organizations, different networks, and also different provinces. And yeah, so I was mentioning in terms of like policy and advocacy as one of the strategic actions that the ZYBN takes, and in terms of empowerment and capacity building development, I know this was something that also came up earlier on, where people are actually concerned, say, like young people being given these opportunities to, for capacity building to develop through workshop or through training. And the ZYBN does that, which is so far organized more than 3 regional capacity building workshop, and the one that I attended in 2017 being one of them. So it strives to host these workshops as a way of bringing on young people from different countries to come together to discuss these issues that will also contribute to participate in COP meetings and in substars and all these other high level meetings that happen. And also outreach and communication is one of the strategic actions that it also take through online campaigns, action on the ground, social media presence. Also seen, like, even us as ZYB, and this is something that we also do. And also just considering that we are in the coronavirus pandemic, we're not able to meet in person. So because we are young people, and we think quick, so we can like basically re-strategize and and change everything and now move on to like advocating via online platforms that we have, and this has so far has been a success, and I'm sure those who are participating in this workshop will know that we were supposed to have this workshop way back in March, but we had to postpone it and had to redesign it so that it becomes an online workshop, and we are happy that we are having it now, because we are not just limiting it to a few people who were supposed to participate, but we also have able to have other young people as well who would not maybe have had the opportunity to participate. And not that we didn't want them to be there, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to include everyone. And another one of the strategies is also like alliance building, and like I already mentioned, like as we strive to work in partnership, in collaboration with different organizations, different stakeholders, and here we partnered with AWF, to bring the second post-2020 global biodiversity consultation, and we are happy that you are here. Um, Yeah, and now one of the strategies is also focusing on information, knowledge, and experience sharing, because we do have like young people, some who have participated in these COP meetings, some haven't participated in. So it's quite important to have those, sessions where there is exchange of information, when new people come in, old people get out, so that everybody is operating at the at the same level. So in terms of our involvement in the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, I just wanted to mention that it's just an ongoing process that is being developed under the CBD, and it's just an agreement that will define global action to address biodiversity loss. So every country that is party to this, except the USA and the Vatican City, is basically working on this to say how are we going to protect our biodiversity from now in the next in the next 10 years, 20 next 10 20 30 years, and I'm also saying 20 because there's also the 2030 sustainable development agenda as well, that is also part of the post 2020 global biodiversity framework discussions, um, and part of these discussions, we're also focusing on how do we prevent, what happened in the last 10 years where the Aichi targets, like most countries, in fact, all countries, like no country actually achieved any of the 20 targets that were included in the 2011 to 2020 strategic plan. And glad to see that some people actually even asking to say that should we be renegotiating and creating an ambitious framework when we failed to even implement the one we had. So those are like questions that you need to be asking, like what do we do and how do we make sure that we do not repeat the same mistakes. So 2020 was dubbed Biodiversity Super Year, whereby we are supposed to have adopted this framework, but it's been pushed next year. So it's still Biodiversity Super Year, and these are discussions that we need to be having to say, how are we going to implement monitoring, issues of funding, and all of those issues, and really make sure that we halt the loss of biodiversity, not just for the benefit of us present generations, but for future generations as well that will come. And these are just the the three objectives of the CBD, which you already mentioned. So I'll just skip over them. And yeah, I just wanted to mention the importance of inclusion. That it's also operating under the principle of inclusive and participatory, in that each and everyone uh, is supposed to be involved in this post 2020 GBF process, whether it's the government, whether it's NGOs, youth, academia, women, everybody, because it's going to affect all of us. And it's quite important, especially for us as young people, because we are the ones who are going to inherit the planet. And some of us are the ones who are going to be implementing this framework. So you don't want to have headaches, when you get to 2030 and then you're like, how did we agree to this? Why did we agree to this? So it's quite important for us to be involved in each and every step, and making sure that we are following what is currently happening, what is currently going on. And of course, this consultation is part of that process. And the GYBN also measure this CBD international publication. So if anyone is interested in knowing what's the processes that go on under the CBD, including the youth engagement under the CBD, this will be a good resource for you to just read. I know it's quite a lot to take in, even like presentation that Edwin gave. I know some people might have left some, but if you do read this, then yeah, you can rest assured that uh, you understand what happens. So yeah, so what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the web of life. It is everything that you see, like if you go outside, the trees, the water, things that live under the earth, the worms, everything, the air you breathe, the food, the clothes that you wear, all come from biodiversity. So this is why when you say we want to protect biodiversity, we are protecting life itself. So if we if we destroy just one component of biodiversity, then it destroys everything else, like it creates that ripple effect, because it's a web that is like interconnected. So everything in biodiversity is connected. That's why we should place much importance in in everything that we see, in all variety of life that we see, on Earth, on all its levels. Um, and yeah, so I talked about the policy advocacy, building alliances, empowerment. Um, Okay, and just to talk about what we are doing as ZYBN, in Zimbabwe, besides focusing on the post-2020 global biodiversity network, framework, and just to bringing the youth voices, the Zimbabwean youth voices, to this conversation, to this platform. We also do host, webinars from time to time, and these are all meant to be, educational, or to as a form of capacity building, training as well, just to give young people skills, and especially in advocacy as well. It's like after you've had all this information, after you've known what biodiversity is, and how you can participate in, the next question is in terms of like advocacy, like how can I be an effective youth advocate? And glad that on Saturday, on the last day of the consultation, we're going to have a session that will speak to that. So I'm hoping that everybody who's joining us today, you also join us again on Saturday, so that we can put everything together and make a plan on how best we can move together and ensure that our biodiversity is protected. Um, and yeah, we also do host like our annual webinar, a symposium in May, around the time of the International Day of Biological Diversity. And this is just a platform where we bring in young people, experts from the academia, to discuss issues of biodiversity, because we don't want to just have a discussion where it's just young people, and leave everyone else. So we want it to be inclusive, because we don't know everything. We also are learning as well. So it also helps us to have, experts as well, participating in some of the of these, workshops that we organize. So we use them as a learning, platform. So just to speak about some of the elements that are being championed, by young people, we do have, the intergenerational, equity, and full and effective participation of young people. This is just us as young people asking that, all generations have to take responsibility, when it comes to protecting biodiversity, and that younger generations should also be able to fully and effectively participate in the decisions that affect them. Like I mentioned, that we are the ones who are going to be inheriting the planet. So our ask is to say, like, we want a post-2020 global biodiversity framework that includes, that protects this intergenerational, equity, that will allow young people to participate. And it's not just participating where you are just given a seat at the table and, your concerns are not acknowledged, but we want to be recognized, as an equal partner as well. And when we raise concerns, we also want to see those concerns being addressed. Because as young people, we may not have the power to change the laws, but what I know is we have the power to influence those policies. That's if we engage our leaders and show them why it is important for them to recognize, intergenerational equity, fairness and justice between generations, and just to take responsibility for fair and sustainable, for a fair and sustainable planet for the generations that will also follow. And the second issue that we championing as well is, the issues of transformative education, and I think this one is quite, important, to leverage transformative change as it addresses many indirect drivers, and value shift, and ultimately behavior change, because that's what we also want, like through behavioral change, through people changing, the current relationship that we have with the planet, that is leading to a lot of these destructive practices that we are doing, such as, over harvesting, overproduction, overconsumption, that is basically hurting the planet. And when we hurt the planet, when we hurt biodiversity, when we destroy it, we are also destroying ourselves. Because remember, as I said, biodiversity is the web of life. So if you love your life, then it means you also have to protect biodiversity and ensure that as an individual, the actions that you're taking, what you're doing, are also considering the effects that it will have on nature and on biodiversity, and also just taking the necessary steps to ensure that even our education is also reformed, because I know, like, there's talk of like including climate change in the curriculum in schools as well, same as biodiversity as well. It's quite an important issue, because with biodiversity loss, there also comes extinction of species. It could be fauna, it could be flora, and once extinction happens, you cannot bring something back. Once it's gone, and we do not want to wait until species are extinct for us to start acting. So we need to start now and including it in our, in our education curriculum, so that people learn about biodiversity. Like if you do like a survey, go to people, just ask them what is biodiversity. They might not be able to even explain the word or the term, or just to give maybe a synonym that is like, that can explain it. But if you ask people about climate change, they might be able to tell you a few things. They might not know what, the full definition, but at least they would have heard of it, and they might be able to have some form of idea. And so that's just the same. Not that we want to separate climate change and biodiversity, because all of them are basically, these are two crises that we cannot solve separately and say, I'm going to fight in the climate change corner, I'm not going to fight in the biodiversity corner. It's always, climate change is actually the third biggest driver when it comes to to biodiversity loss. And we're seeing like solutions are found in nature. When you protect biodiversity, then we are able to also solve climate change. So hopefully, if we shift our mindsets, change our behaviors, we might be able to live in harmony with nature, which is the 2050 goal of the framework. And then the third one is issues of rights, human rights. Know that our constitution in Zimbabwe does have, I think it's section 73, if I'm so correct, which basically protects a person's rights to an environment that is clean and safe. But that is as far as that goes. It's just protecting your rights, to a safe and clean environment. But is it really protecting the environment itself, or we're seeing that laws that are actually being created that we term as environmental laws are actually, helping to destroy biodiversity? So that's why we have, this component of the rights of nature, right? Giving this extra protection to extra layer of protection to nature, for it to be able to sue, on in its own capacity. For example, you might have a river, which if you're distracted from flowing, or you pollute it, then it might be able to sue, say, you've been polluting the river. Same way as you have companies being able to sue in their own capacity, or people even suing companies. That's the same way that you also want for nature as well. But this is not something that's already there. There are some countries which already have recognized that nature has rights. We have like New Zealand, getting the other country that includes this, in their laws. So this is something that's of course under discussion. And if there are any people who are interested, in just looking into this issue and maybe just having discussion even with our own policymakers, and see if this is something that we can even push for in Zimbabwe, and if we are going to be pushing for it, what does it look like? How are we going to even do it? So dialogue is always, important. So these are our social media platforms that you can find us: a website, Instagram, Facebook. You can get in touch with us on any one of these platforms, and that is the ZYBN website that you can also look into, especially for those people like from out of Zimbabwe. If you're in a country that doesn't have a chapter and you feel that young people are actually being left behind in this process, and you'd want them to be involved, you can always visit the website and get in touch with the steering committee, and then you can discuss on how you can also establish a chapter in your country. So just to conclude, this is not the end. Even if after the post-2020 global biodiversity framework is agreed next year in May, there is still more work that needs to be done. After that, we have issues of like updating our national biodiversity strategic plans, which actually enables us to implement, the framework that we're going to agree on. So that is also another opportunity for young people to be involved, in the process. So it's not too late to be involved. So you can be involved and still participate in this framework.